In this video, you're going to learn about the difference between easy running and recovery running, why they're both so important, the difference between zone 1 and zone 2, also all about the 3 energy systems. So hopefully you get a better understanding as to why it's important and how to elevate your training with easy running. Now, in order for the rest of this video to make sense, we need to have a good understanding of the energy systems. You actually don't need to know the scientific details. As long as you understand the simplified version, which is what I'm going to talk about in this video, you'll be fine. There's 3 types of energy systems: the aerobic system, and we have the lactate system, and then we have the ATP PCR system right here. The ATP PCR system is also known as the immediate energy system. The lactate system is known as the intermediate energy system, and the aerobic system, or the oxidative system, is again your aerobic long distance system that you use for energy. All 3 of these are giving you energy, producing energy. That's the main purpose. But the lactate system, also known as the glycolytic or intermediate, this produces energy pretty quickly, but not that much energy. Whereas the aerobic system, or the oxidative system, it takes a bit longer to produce the energy, but it produces a lot of energy. And this energy system, the ATP PCR system, is a little bit less relevant for distance runners, but it's still there as an immediate system. If you're like absolutely sprinting down the home stretch of a 10K or a half or a marathon or whatever race, you're probably using the ATP PCR system, but this only lasts for a few seconds, so not as relevant in this video. The other fundamental understanding that I want you to know about these 3 systems is that the ATP PCR system is anaerobic, meaning it doesn't use oxygen. The lactate system is also anaerobic, so it doesn't use any oxygen. But the aerobic system obviously uses oxygen, and that is going to be a key part of understanding this video. Now, as always, I'm going to simplify the science so that you guys understand it. So I'm not going to go into the full detail, but you're going to know enough to understand the important stuff. So let's get cracking. First of all, there's the 3 energy systems, but a lot of people think that you go from one energy system to another. But that's not how it works. It's actually all 3 energy systems working together in unison, and that's what I mean when I say that. They're all working, but at different ratios depending on the intensity, how far you are in the run, and many other factors. We want to remember that the aerobic system is pretty dominant in most endurance events. Even when we talk about a 1500 or an 800, it's still 75% aerobic, so we're heavily relying on this for 1500 or 800, and we're only relying on this a little bit still, even for the middle distance races. When we're talking about a marathon, this is carrying, this is like 99% of the run. So these 2 are actually not contributing as much, but that actually means that it's really important to develop your aerobic system, your aerobic power, your aerobic base. They do actually mean kind of different things, all 3 stuff that I said, but in general, we want to work on our aerobic fitness. So if you do have a friend that does 4 interval sessions in a week and doesn't do any easy running, make sure to send this video to them and let them know that they need to do some easy running. Also, shout out to my watch time, leave a like and comment below if you also have a really random watch time. Anyway, that's getting distracted. Let's get back to the point. As we're moving into higher intensities, we're going to have a little bit more contribution of the lactate system, or the glycolytic system, or the intermediate system, whatever you want to call it. So this starts to contribute a little bit more compared to this. It's important to remember that both of these systems rely on glucose and glycogen storage. So it's going to break down that glucose via a process called glycolysis and produce pyruvate. But what happens to that pyruvate depends on whether you have oxygen or not. And obviously it's a bit of a spectrum, so there's going to be a bit of overlap all the time. As I said, all energy systems are working together in unison, but you might have a slightly different contribution of this versus this, like a different ratio. But again, it's still going to be heavily aerobic, and it's just more of a matter of how much this is contributing to this, but this is still dominant pretty much for most endurance events. Hang on a minute, you're telling me 2/3 of the people watching this video right now are not subscribed to the channel? I can't believe that, guys. Make sure to subscribe. If you want more free tips, join the crew and let's all become better runners. Now, to get back into the topic of this video, the reason why we want to have a big aerobic base is because this system actually recovers quite quickly, whereas this system takes a while to recover. Again, this is simplifying it, but it is essentially what it is. This is a longer recovery period, so if you think about it like a video game, you can keep spamming this attack, whereas this one has a recharge period, so you're not going to be able to like constantly work this once you deplete it. So the stronger your aerobic base is, the less you have to rely on this in the other system, and that's why the people with the biggest base actually tend to feel the best when they're about to do their final kick, so they have a lot more energy left and they have more to just hammer home with this and then get them to the finish line as quick as possible. If you have a weak base and you start using this a bit more earlier in the race when you don't really want to use it as much, you're going to have less energy that you can produce in a short amount of time available at the end. So we want this to be as big and as strong as possible, rely on it as long as possible before we start using the other two energy systems. Again, they're all working a little bit probably if you're running like a medium intensity, and depending on how you feel, stress levels and everything that I always talk about, running is always multifactorial, so you need to remember that. So everything that I mentioned so far should give you a glimpse of why it's important to run slow and make sure you do a lot of it to make sure that you're feeling a little fresher at the latter stages of the race. So you can actually stop thinking about, oh, I always need to run race pace in training. You don't have to always run it. Yes, we need to trickle it in, but we want to do a lot of training to develop that aerobic base and rely on that base as much as possible before we use the other systems. But again, I'm saying that the other systems are still important to train because once we get to that stage, we need to be able to tap into that system and actually do a lot of good work there. So they all are important, but doing a lot of base training is also very important. So now that we have a good understanding of why aerobic training is important, let's talk about the difference between recovery runs and easy runs. However, we should also define it because a lot of people don't know what it is. So recovery runs or recovery pace is basically the slowest pace that you can run without feeling like you're forcefully running slow. So for me, for example, if I run 6:30 per kilometer, I feel pretty good. I don't have to think about it. It's like literally autopilot and I can do that forever. But if I run like 7 minutes per kilometer, for example, I feel like I have to forcefully move slower, as in it takes effort to go slower. I feel like I have to change my running form in an awkward way, which I don't really want to do. So it takes more energy out of me to run 7 minutes per kilometer compared to 6:30 per kilometer. So you don't have to like obsess over what number. That's going to change depending on the day as well. But it's essentially the slowest pace that doesn't feel forced. Whereas easy run is literally a really big range between, again, just whatever feels really, really easy all the way up to LT1. So once you develop your aerobic base, that easy run range is going to become huge. So depending on how I'm feeling that day, it could be anywhere from like 6:15 per kilometer all the way up to like even 4 minutes per K for me right now. And again, there isn't harsh boundaries in paces because it depends on how you feel on the day. So we need to stop obsessing over exact paces. It's not like 4:01 per kilometer is still easy for me, 3:59 is suddenly tempo or threshold. That's not how it works. It depends on a lot of factors like everything else in running. Now going back to recovery runs, you should be able to speak in completely full sentences, have proper conversations, and it should almost feel too easy, but you're still not forcing the movements of like running slower or faster. Like it just feels completely easy, you can do it the whole day. But for easy running, especially if you're an elite runner, zone 2 training is actually quite fast. Like it can get quite fast, which is why I was saying, for me, I could be running 4 minutes per K and it's still zone 2. So it requires a tiny bit of focus to stay on pace when it's an easy run. But again, I'm not obsessing over pace though, but it takes a little bit of focus. It's not like completely autopilot. It could be a little bit faster. But this only applies to people that have a really big aerobic base. At the start, there will be so much overlap between zone 1 and zone 2. And by the way, when I say zone 1, I'm talking about recovery. Zone 2, I'm talking about easy run. But again, there's a little bit of nuance to that, but that's like the simple version of what I'm talking about. And also, if you are a beginner, you're not really going to have a zone 1 pace because you're probably going to have to walk to achieve a zone 1. So if you're a beginner and you want to do a recovery run, I would actually recommend you alternate between running and walking because that's probably the best way to get circulation in the blood and get the waste products out of your muscle and deliver oxygen to promote recovery, active recovery. So yeah, you might need to implement a little bit of walking if you are new to running and you want to stay in zone 1. But again, if you're new to running, I wouldn't focus too much about zones. I would just focus on what feels easy, what feels like a moderate, steady effort, and what feels like a hard effort, and just use those 3 types of feelings to do your training and do a little bit of everything, but do most of it easy, obviously. And the goal of a recovery run is actually to make sure that you're promoting this blood circulation, removing the toxins and getting oxygen to the muscle without adding that much biomechanical stress to your body. So you don't want to have that impact force and stuff, which is why we're trying to run as slow as possible to make sure that we're not pounding the pavement too much, but we're still promoting blood circulation. So going for a walk is actually a great way to do active recovery. That's technically a recovery run, even though it's a walk. Even if you're an elite runner, you're promoting recovery, so that kind of achieves the purpose of a recovery run. But obviously, as a guy that loves running, I'd rather do a zone 1 run than having to walk, obviously, because I'd rather run more. But zone 2 running, you kind of bridge the gap between that recovery run and also LT1. So now we're starting to get like a little bit more mitochondrial density, capillarization, increase in stroke volume, increase in heart muscle contraction, cardiac output's going to increase, your heart rate might become lower because your stroke volume's a bit higher now. Like all these physiological adaptations, we're starting to work towards a bit more of that because we're stressing the aerobic system a little bit more. I'm not saying zone 1 has none of that. Like again, it's all overlap, so you get a little bit of everything with everything. But obviously with recovery running, we're not getting speed training benefits. With speed training benefits, we're not getting recovery run benefits that much, right? So it's a spectrum, and there's a little bit of overlap as you move up the spectrum. Now going back to the purpose of recovery runs, we're talking about more parasympathetic tone. So the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic is that sympathetic is more talking about the fight or flight response, whereas the parasympathetic system is more about rest and digest. If we can rely and stay in a rest and digest form or mindset, or form is probably the best word I can think of right now, we are kind of delaying when we stress our body more and start to alert the signals and try and recruit more of the other two energy systems as much. So we're trying to get in like a Zen mindset with the recovery runs, and that's probably going to be helpful in the future when you do enter a race and you want to try and stay calm for a long period of time. Also with recovery running, we're focusing more on our type 1 fibers, whereas with zone 2 running or easy running, we're trying to work a little bit more of type 1 and type 2A fibers. Obviously there's a type 2B fiber, which is not as relevant for this video, but that's all I really need to talk about it in this video. I don't think we need to go into detail on fast twitch and slow twitch right now. Maybe we'll save that for another video because it's already getting quite long. But like I said, as you do become fitter and your zone 2 becomes really big, depending on whether you're in upper zone 2 or lower zone 2, you might be working more on your LT1 sort of benefits or your recovery run sort of benefits, and there's everything in between. And again, it's a spectrum, it's not a light switch. You don't go from top of zone 2 to bottom of zone 2 and then back to top of zone 2. Like you kind of fluctuate between, I don't know, it depends on a lot of stuff, but essentially it's not a light switch, it's a spectrum. Now to wrap up this video, I want to give you one practical tip that you can use in your training, which I think will help you a lot. So I'm a really big fan of intuitive training. I wake up every day and I do exactly what I want to do that day, depending on how I feel, how I've been recovering, and all these factors taken into account. So I don't usually know until I start the run how I feel, so I actually do the first little bit really slow and just assess how my body's feeling. Am I feeling any niggles? Am I feeling good? Am I ready to go a little bit faster that day? Because my zone 2 range is really big, like I was talking about, so I really need a moment to assess how I'm feeling before I decide what sort of pace I think I should run throughout. And again, I'm not thinking about exact numbers, I'm more thinking about effort. But yes, I do have a small pace range in mind usually. But this is why if you follow me on Strava, you'll notice that some days I feel genuinely really good and I'm just running like 425s like it's nothing, and then other days I'm running like 550 per kilometer and I'm actually struggling to go any quicker than that, and that's what's truly easy on that day. So it really differs depending on the day, and I'm a really big fan of not forcing a certain pace when you're not feeling great. So if I'm feeling niggly and I don't feel good, I want to just run whatever feels truly easy that day, so I just run a little bit slower. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. And again, we don't even need to think of it as distinctly recovery run or easy run. If you just truly do whatever you feel like in your body, it's going to serve both purposes. Like I said, it's not either you're in zone 1 or you're in zone 2. There's probably a little bit of overlap, and the benefits that you get are a little bit as well. So obviously if I'm running somewhere in between zone 1 and zone 2, then technically I'm getting that benefit of running slow enough that I'm not adding as much biomechanical stress, but I'm getting that nice blood circulation and removing the toxins from my muscles, and I'm recovering a lot better because of that. But if I'm feeling a little bit better, then yes, I might be running a little bit quicker, but I feel so good that day that maybe that's not adding that much biomechanical stress, and I'm still getting that benefit of blood circulation, but I'm also getting the benefit of lactate buffering a little bit, and that mitochondrial density, stroke volume, and all those adaptations that I was talking about earlier. So it's not really black or white, that's the main thing I'm trying to say. And every day, a different pace feels really natural to me. So if I feel way better running 425 per kilometer on a certain day, I'm going to do that because that's probably going to be the most efficient running form for that day for me. And just to reiterate how multifactorial running is, depending on the shoe that you're wearing, your most efficient form might change on the day because of that as well, on top of all the other factors that come into play like heat, humidity, altitude, and everything else. If I force myself to run 550 per kilometer on a day where 425 feels really natural, I'm forcing myself to do something that my body doesn't actually want to do, and that might be a bigger risk to injury than actually following what your body's saying. Obviously, don't take the absolute piss and suddenly run and say 330 per K is my easy pace. That's not how it works, but within reason, you do want to fluctuate between different paces, whatever feels good in that moment, and that might change throughout the run as well. So that's what intuitive running really is like, and I feel like Steve Magnus is also a really big fan of this sort of stuff, so respect to him, and I really love his content. I think he's another person that's producing really good content on YouTube, and a lot of people should watch him. But anyway, that's about all I want to say for this video. We can save more chat for another video. Comment below if you have any other questions on what you want me to cover. As always, there's a buy me a coffee link in the description, and I really appreciate the people that have been supporting recently. Again, like I said, I'm doing unpaid placements right now, working 8 hours a day every single weekday, not getting paid, and it really means a lot when people help me out a little bit. So again, only help out if you have the financial means to do so. Don't waste your hard-earned money on me. But shout out to everyone that really does support me. I really do appreciate it. Please leave a like, comment below, share the channel. That helps a lot as well. Growing the channel means more opportunities for me in the future. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video.